Hey everyone, it's me, Amelia. I liquidated my entire savings account on a dilapidated property, a ramshackle house, if you will. That cost me a whopping $1,200. The subsequent fallout? My family unceremoniously cast me out, treating me as though I were utterly insignificant. But the real devastation wasn't their rejection. The crushing blow was the stark realization that their affection was never genuinely mine to lose in the first place. The deception, the silence, the subtle erasure, it all culminated in my current predicament. And now, they're the ones at my doorstep, pathetically begging for access to the very home they once ridiculed. Before we delve into the sordid details, tell me, where are you tuning in from? Caught in the morning commute? Enjoying a late-night drive? Let me know in the comments below. You're about to hear everything they desperately hoped would forever remain buried. The tires crunched on the damp gravel as I navigated the lengthy, sloping driveway. The residence at the end of the drive looked precisely as it did in the online photographs, perhaps even worse. The exterior siding was peeling, windows were boarded up, and the roof sagged, appearing as though it had surrendered decades ago. Yet, it was mine. Every last bit of that $1,200. I shifted the car into park and remained seated for a few moments, passively observing the rain streaking across the windshield. I didn't feel victorious. Instead, I felt banished. Regardless, I exited the vehicle, flung open the trunk, and retrieved the portable chair I kept there for writing breaks and impromptu brainstorming sessions. Today, it felt exceptionally heavy. I positioned it carefully on the gravel, unfolded it, and settled onto the seat. The mud stubbornly clung to my boots, as if Mother Earth herself was urging me to retreat. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not this time. This wasn't the intended trajectory. Just a week prior, I was seated at my parents' dining table, still naive enough to believe that familial harmony was attainable if I adhered to their rules. The roast was dry, the wine excessively sweet, and the expectations stifling. Mom incessantly droned on about Clara's upcoming retreat in Sedona, portraying it as some sort of spiritual pilgrimage. $25,000, she declared, as if it were mere pocket change. It will revitalize her energy. She desperately needs this after all she's done for our family. Clara, who always possessed an uncanny ability to make her struggles appear more noble than mine, smiled graciously and sipped her Pinot Noir with the air of a saint. Then, Dad addressed me directly. Amelia, you mentioned transferring the funds last week. What accounts for the delay? I looked up from my plate and stated my case, calmly and simply. I didn't transfer the money. I made a purchase. The clinking of silverware ceased abruptly. Clara froze mid-sentence. Mom blinked once, slowly, her expression calculating. What do you mean you made a purchase? I purchased a house, I replied. It requires significant renovations, but it's mine. Silence ensued. Then Dad's voice, cool yet laced with underlying thunder, pierced the quiet. You squandered your savings on yourself. Clara emitted a small derisive laugh. You bought a dilapidated ruin instead of assisting me with my spiritual rejuvenation. That's remarkably characteristic of you. I never consented to fund your trip, I retorted, striving to maintain my composure. I simply didn't explicitly refuse. Mom placed her wine glass down with a sharp click. You've clearly embraced poverty. Don't anticipate our financial support for your delusions. I attempted to respond, but Dad raised his hand to silence me. You desire independence? Then be entirely self-sufficient. The following morning, my name was conspicuously absent from the family group chat. Easter plans? Cancelled. For me, just like that. Back in the present, I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. The sky was a uniform gray, yet there was no storm brewing. Just that oppressive, heavy pressure that constricted my chest. The kind of weather that made everything feel irrevocably final. My phone vibrated. One new message from Mom. Do not attend Easter. No love, Mom. No explanation. Just erase. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the delete button, then reconsidered. I returned the phone to my coat pocket, like tucking away a piece of myself I no longer needed. I sat back, allowing the cold to penetrate my thin jacket, a garment I hadn't replaced in years. The house loomed ahead, unsightly, vacant, and mine, a symbol of everything I was supposedly not supposed to desire. Freedom, autonomy, a future not built upon someone else's expectations. If you cease serving a purpose, they stop pretending to care. But I wasn't broken, not yet. And I hadn't come this far only to retreat. The wind intensified, tugging at the edges of my coat, attempting to rip away whatever dignity I had left. I remained seated for a considerable time, trying to prevent my body from succumbing to the weight of it all. Eventually, I stood and proceeded inside, stepping over a broken screen door and onto creaking floorboards that groaned under my weight. Inside, the air reeked of mildew and damp wood. Cold air seeped through gaps I hadn't noticed in the photographs. I retrieved the single curtain I'd brought with me, a faded blue floral print from my college apartment, and climbed onto a rusty step stool to hang it. I tried to insert the rod into the frame. It slid sideways, then popped out entirely, crashing to the floor with a loud clang. Typical, I muttered, rubbing my elbow where it had struck the wall. I sank to the cracked linoleum floor and leaned my head against the peeling paint, blinking up at the bare window. Then, unexpectedly, a memory surfaced. 16 years old. My birthday. Mom had summoned everyone to the living room, presenting a cake adorned with bright pink frosting and mismatched candles. Clara had assisted with the decorations. It was sweet, really, except they'd misspelled my name. Happy birthday, Rowena. No double N. I was Amelia. Always had been, always corrected teachers, but they'd forgotten. Or perhaps they never cared enough to inquire. Clara received a used Volkswagen for her 16th birthday. Dad stood in the driveway, beaming as if she had just graduated from medical school. You deserve this, honey, he proclaimed. All your hard work. She had a C average. I received a lopsided cake and a vague promise of driving lessons. Maybe next year. That marked the beginning of it all. Or perhaps it started even earlier, and I was simply too young to recognize it. I recalled Christmas photographs where I was perpetually positioned to the side, birthday cards signed "Love You Girls," with only Clara's name underlined. I remembered being left behind on the family vacation to Florida, due to a lack of space in the car. I was 28. At a certain point, one stops attributing such incidents to forgetfulness. One realizes, it's a conscious choice. I stood and brushed off my jeans, but my hands trembled slightly. Not from the cold, from the memories. They never yelled at me, not once, but they erased me, slowly, subtly, as if they were gently deleting a file no one truly needed anymore. You're too intense, Mom used to say, when I inquired about the lack of applause at my award ceremonies. Let things go. But when Clara was voted best hair in high school, they framed the certificate and hung it near the front door. I had won a statewide essay competition that same year. Dad advised me not to boast. I believed that if I worked harder, they would acknowledge my achievements. So I persevered, achieving straight A's, securing scholarships, even assisting Mom with redesigning her nonprofit's website during college. They never noticed. The radiator in the living room sputtered unexpectedly, causing me to jump. My body was so tense, I could barely breathe. I moved into the kitchen and sat on the floor, my back against the refrigerator. There were no appliances yet, no cabinets, just a box of donated tools and an unopened can of paint. I whispered. Perhaps they didn't forget me. Perhaps they chose not to see me. My phone vibrated. For a moment, I thought it was another text from Mom, another act of erasure, but it was Aunt Carol. Hey, sweetie. Her voice crackled through the speaker. I just wanted to check in. I heard, well, I saw you weren't in the family group chat anymore. I chuckled softly. Isn't that something? Digitally exiled, she hesitated. I want to tell you something, and I hope you'll listen. You were never the problem. You simply weren't Clara. That was your only transgression. I swallowed, resting my head against the cold refrigerator door. It still hurts. I know it does, she said gently. But here's the thing. When they need something, they'll circle back. They always do. Just don't forget how this felt. Don't you dare forget. Her voice wavered slightly on the last sentence. It wasn't anger. It was exhaustion. I didn't understand it then. But Aunt Carol was correct. They would return, and they would require more than forgiveness. The wind had subsided, and dusk was settling like dust on the shattered glass of my kitchen window. I was crouched on a splintered stool, attempting to repair the latch that had long since rusted shut. My fingers were numb, both from the cold and from a gnawing weariness I couldn't shake. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. One notification. Voicemail. I didn't move at first. I simply stared at the screen. Mom, no message preview. Just the weight of her name. I set the screwdriver down on the windowsill, wiped my hands on my jeans, and stood motionless for a prolonged period. Should I listen? There was no part of me that believed it would be a genuine apology, but I pressed play anyway. Amelia, sweetheart. Her voice was saccharine, the tone she employed at bake sales and PTA meetings. Soft, melodious, meticulously measured to sound maternal. Never mind the venom she unleashed when no one else was observing. I've been thinking about you a great deal lately. Things escalated, certainly, but you must understand something. Clara has been under immense stress. Planning this retreat hasn't been easy. You know how sensitive she is. Sensitive. That word again, as if Clara were made of spun glass, while I was merely drywall, meant to be punched, patched, and painted over. I simply wish you had considered how challenging this year has been for her. And I know you mean well, but sometimes your timing, well, it's just a little off. My jaw clenched. I could already anticipate the remainder of her message, approaching like a freight train. She truly looked up to you, you know. I believe that's why she reacted so strongly. And your father, he didn't intend what he said. He was hurt. You've always been the stronger one, the more mature one. There it was. Can't you be the more mature one? They never asked Clara to be the more mature one. She could scream, lie, disappear for weeks, and still return home to birthday cakes and open arms. Me, I was expected to swallow everything, smile through it all, and transform every wound into grace. The voicemail concluded with, "We're all simply doing our best, honey. Perhaps it's time to let this go. Let this go." I closed my eyes and stood perfectly still, allowing the silence to resonate louder than her voice ever had. Then I replayed one sentence repeatedly in my mind. You've always been the more mature one, as if that were intended as a compliment, a badge of honor. It was a muzzle, a tool they used to keep me in check, be the more mature one, so they never had to be accountable. I walked over to the small plastic bin, where I'd tossed a few items. When I moved in, at the bottom was a faded photograph in a frame. I hadn't examined it since packing. It was from my college graduation. Everyone else was smiling. Clara, dead center, was holding her camera in front of my face, almost entirely obscuring me. I'd asked them to retake the picture. They didn't. "I'll edit you in," Clara had said with a laugh. They framed that photograph. I stared at it now, at the minuscule sliver of my shoulder, barely visible at the edge of the frame. Then, I turned it face down on the counter. I didn't distance myself from them to punish anyone. I didn't stop answering their calls out of spite. I left because the silence was killing me. The pretense, the way I had to shapeshift just to remain included. I craved peace. A place where I didn't have to defend my right to exist. I wanted a home that didn't penalize me for choosing it. Even if it only cost $1,220 and had holes in the walls. It was mine. I grabbed a pen and scribbled a single sentence on a sticky note, then affixed it to the back of the photo frame. This is not who I am. The phone buzzed again. A second voicemail from Mom. I didn't listen this time. I knew the pattern. Extend a sugar-coated branch, then tighten it around your neck when you accept it. Instead, I opened the window as far as the broken latch would permit and allowed the cool evening air to fill the room. Peace wasn't what they sought. A week later, they appeared at my door, with tears and a plea. The sun barely warmed the porch planks when the knocking commenced. At first, I thought it was the wind rattling a loose shutter, but then it came again. 3 sharp raps, deliberate. I peered out through the tattered curtain. My heart didn't plummet, it sank. There she was. Clara. One stiletto heel tapped the concrete with feigned irritation. Her coat was cream-colored cashmere, belted at the waist, and her oversized sunglasses reflected the entire street like a mirror daring anyone to look back. Even standing still, she looked like she was mid-photo shoot. She didn't wait for me to open the door. Instead, she turned to the side, allowing her voice to carry toward the neighbor walking her dog. "Mom says she's really let herself go. But you know, some people just need their little rebellions." I stood frozen in the hallway. That coat alone cost more than my roof repairs. That was her entrance. Luxury against my peeling paint, snide remarks where there used to be silence. Her favorite pastime, public performance under the guise of concern. I opened the door, just as she turned back toward it. "Well, there she is. The homeowner," she said, drawing out the word as if it were some sort of joke. "Honestly, this neighborhood has really deteriorated. Do you get raccoons here?" I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "Is that why you're here? To survey the wildlife?" She smirked. "No need to be defensive, Amelia. I'm merely trying to check in. You've disappeared off the grid." "You mean after you told Mom I'd become a complete recluse?" "Yes. I figured a little distance would benefit me." Her eyes darted to the peeling shutters, the chipped railings. She clicked her tongue. "This place, it has character. I'll grant you that. And mold, and an odor." Behind her, another neighbor passed by. She waved, sugary sweet. "Don't mind us, just catching up, family bonding." Then she leaned in slightly, and lowered her voice. "Listen, the Homeowners Association has been investigating. Someone mentioned this place might not meet code. I raised an eyebrow. You reported me to the homeowners association. She didn't answer directly. I'm just saying, this area has standards. People talk. I didn't flinch. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. She switched gears rapidly, as she always did. One moment, weaponized condescension. The next, sugar-drenched desperation. I'm in a bit of a predicament, she said, sighing dramatically. A pipe burst in the spa wing. A total disaster. I had to cancel 3 sound bath sessions. I waited. Clara touched the edge of the porch with one polished fingertip, as if it might bite her. So I thought, maybe, just for a night or two, while they repair things, I can sleep anywhere. Even here. Like it was a campground. She was stalling. Probably had nowhere else to go without explaining why the retreat wasn't going as planned. Whatever had cracked in her picture-perfect world, she wasn't ready for anyone else to see it, especially not her followers. Clara, you told Mom I was unstable. I never said that. You said I was mentally spiraling in a hovel. She had the decency to look away, but only for a second. I was just worried, she said. And look, you proved us wrong. You're surviving. I mean, you're still doing that blog thing, right? What do you call it? Grant whispering? I didn't bother correcting her. I simply stepped aside. One night, I said, don't touch anything. Her face lit up, like she'd just been invited to a castle. You're the best. Seriously, you always were. It's why people walk all over you. She swept past me, as if she owned the place. That was her method. Act like it was always hers to begin with. I stood by the door for a considerable time after she passed, staring at the path she'd taken, heels clicking on rotting floorboards. She needed help. But not the kind she thought. I awoke to the aroma of instant coffee, and something far worse. Laughter. Not the warm kind. The kind that felt like a slap across the face. Still groggy, I pulled a sweater over my tank top and padded toward the kitchen. The floor creaked under my feet, as if it wanted to warn me, and perhaps it should have. As I rounded the corner, I stopped abruptly. A ring light was set up by the window, its harsh white glow casting artificial glamour over a chipped counter. My stained kettle had been moved aside, replaced by a neatly arranged display of oat milk cartons, granola bars, and a candle that wasn't mine. And in the midst of it all was Clara, full face of makeup, smiling into her phone as if she were hosting a morning show. My morning, my kitchen. Say hello to my angels, she cooed into the screen. We're here doing something truly meaningful today. I wanted to show you guys where my sister, bless her heart, has been residing. It's a bit of a fixer-upper. But we adore transformations, don't we? She panned the camera toward the cracked tiles, the mismatched chairs, the yellowing linoleum. I stood frozen by the doorway, watching her transform my lived-in survival into her pity parade. This refrigerator hasn't functioned since Y2K, she joked, giving it a kick. And don't even get me started on the odor. Honestly, it's giving off generational trauma. The comment section buzzed on her phone. I could hear the stream of chimes from my position. Oh my God, someone just asked if this was a homeless shelter. Clara laughed. No, sweetie, it's my sister's house. I know, it's tragic. I stepped further into the room, remaining silent. She didn't notice me at first. Another comment appeared. Is that really your sister? She looks like a squatter. Clara didn't even blink. She tilted the camera toward me. Yup, she said. That's her. Look at those slippers. It's giving Great Depression chic. Something inside me snapped. I walked over, calm as stone, and yanked the phone off the tripod. The suction sound of the pop socket detaching echoed louder than her gasp. Hey, what are you doing? She shrieked. I looked directly into her perfectly contoured face. You want content? Here it is. Get out, before I give them the story they actually deserve. She fumbled to retrieve the phone. I didn't allow her. You don't get to weaponize my life for likes, Clara. Not anymore. Her expression shifted. The victim mask slipped on effortlessly. Eyes wide, mouth open, breath trembling. It was Oscar-worthy. I was just trying to help, she said, her voice cracking. I thought people could donate or something. It was for you. You mocked me in my own home. You made me a joke. I handed her the phone as if it were a lifeless object. You can leave now, Clara sniffed theatrically, gathering her makeup bag and purse with a flourish. As she passed by, she made sure to say it loudly enough for her unseen audience to hear. "This is what I get for trying to be a good sister." The door slammed shut behind her. The ring light still hummed faintly in the silence. I leaned back against the wall, hands shaking, but not from fear, from rage, from freedom. Something had clicked. They didn't get to script my life anymore. By late evening, the chaos had settled into a strange, humming silence. I sat curled on the second-hand couch, a chipped mug of black coffee warming my fingers. Outside, dusk had drawn a blanket over the mountains. Inside, my phone screen pulsed like a heartbeat, notifications exploding, each one carrying my name like a grenade. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't said a word, but they were talking about me, tagging me, commenting, sharing. I finally opened Instagram, expecting another clip from Clara's endless healing journey montage. Instead, I found something worse. The first screenshot stopped me cold. It was a GoFundMe campaign titled "Help My Sister Rebuild." My face plastered across the banner. I was mid-step, carrying a garbage bag, hair tied back, sweat on my brow. Another photo showed me curled up on the couch, wrapped in the same quilt Aunt Carol had given me after the fallout. And next to it, a caption that read like a eulogy. "My baby sis has been through so much. Help me give her a life she deserves." Raised, recipient Clara Vale, withdrawal account, Clara's business PayPal. I didn't even finish scrolling before the blood rushed to my ears. She had turned me into a charity case and monetized it. I stood up, pacing the small room like a caged animal. My hand trembled around the phone. I clicked into the comments section. People were showering her with praise. "You're such a good sister. The world needs more people like you." I slammed the mug down on the table. It cracked. Clara hadn't mentioned it. Not once. Not when she left that morning, dramatically wiping a fake tear from her cheek. Not when she posted that story of herself driving away from toxicity while soft piano music played. I opened our last text exchange. Nothing. I tried to report the fundraiser, but the platform said, "This campaign does not violate our community guidelines." Of course it didn't. She knew how to manipulate the system, frame it perfectly, say just enough, always letting people assume the rest. A new story popped up on her feed. "Some people just want to stay angry. I'm doing what I can. Haters gonna hate." I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I looked back at the photos, the one with me kneeling on the porch in those old slippers. Great Depression chic, she'd laughed. The door creaked slightly with the breeze. The room was quiet, too quiet. I felt like a ghost haunting my own house. Then a notification slid across the top of the screen. Message request from Esteli, Gedsdargand curse. "Hey, I saw the GoFundMe. You didn't authorize that, did you?" I blinked. "I'm a paralegal, Colorado bar certified. This looks like civil exploitation, possibly even wire fraud, depending on how the funds were framed. Want to talk? Receipts?" I sat down slowly, staring at the message. My heart didn't race. It didn't skip. It just steadied. Someone out there saw it too. Not just the humiliation, the strategy behind it. I typed one word. "Yes," she replied instantly. "Cool. Start with screen recordings. Capture timestamps. Don't confront her publicly yet. Trust me." For the first time in weeks, I felt the tiniest flicker of power. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I took a breath, switched my phone to Do Not Disturb, and began to document, clip by clip, screenshot by screenshot, not just to protect myself, but to dismantle the game she built, using me as the bait. The day before Clara's event, the house was strangely still. I had the windows cracked open, letting the crisp mountain air sweep through as I sat at the small kitchen table, laptop open, phone buzzing beside me. The nerves should have hit me already. 2 days ago, I would have been pacing holes in the floor. But now, there was only a focused calm tightening in my chest. Eleanor's face popped up on Zoom, framed neatly by stacks of legal pads and a half-empty coffee cup. We both signed off on the final version of the cease and desist letter, her voice steady and professional even when mine wavered slightly. "Breathe, Amelia. The paperwork does the talking now," she said, flashing a small, reassuring smile. I leaned back, watching the seconds tick down to Clara's live promo event, her first big public move since the GoFundMe explosion. She had teased it for days. A special Q&A for her followers, a raw, unfiltered session to set the record straight. I almost laughed. Nothing about Clara had ever been unfiltered. 10 minutes before her event went live, Eleanor's courier confirmed. The envelope was in position, ready to be delivered in the middle of her broadcast. Like a storm cloud that had been gathering too long, it was time to break open. The screen on my phone flickered to life. There she was, basking under soft golden lighting, dressed in muted earth tones, like she was filming a life coaching retreat, rather than trying to salvage a crumbling reputation. She smiled wide at her audience. "Hi, beautiful souls, thank you for showing up today. I know there's been noise, but let's focus on positivity here." My stomach twisted as I listened to her spin the story, how she was just helping a family member rebuild, how sometimes negativity comes from pain we can't understand. I almost admired the audacity. Almost. Then it happened. Midway through a question about family values, someone stepped onto the stage from the side, a nervous-looking assistant clutching a thick manila envelope. Clara's practiced smile froze. She took the envelope, blinking rapidly. Live chat exploded. "What's that?" She looks panicked. "OMG, why'd she stop talking?" Her fingers trembled slightly as she skimmed the letter inside. Her eyes darted to the camera, then away. The cheerful background music looped awkwardly as she muttered something off-mic to the assistant. Then, abruptly, the live stream cut out. No sign-off, no closing affirmations, just static. I sat back, letting the moment wash over me. It wasn't the loud, messy revenge I once craved. No screaming matches, no viral videos of door-slamming fights. It was sharper, cleaner, poetic. Within minutes, Reddit threads bloomed. "Cease and desist. Someone got legally bodied live." Screenshots or "it didn't happen." People were posting clips of her frozen face, analyzing every twitch, every stammer. Others started digging deeper, linking the GoFundMe to the same PayPal account tied to her wellness business. One she claimed was for community good. While the internet swirled, another notification slid across my screen. Message from President_Oak Haven Estates. I opened it, pulse quickening. "Hi Amelia. We were unaware Clara Vale was using the Oak Haven Estates community name to solicit funds. This misrepresentation violates our Code of Ethics and Emergency Aid Policies. We're initiating a formal review and would like your cooperation." Attached are copies of her applications, citing you as a displaced homeowner needing crisis housing. Please confirm or dispute. Attached were PDFs, forms where Clara had fabricated half-truths about my living situation, using my address, my struggles, to strengthen her branding pitch for grants and partnerships. I scrolled through them slowly, absorbing every line. It wasn't just family betrayal anymore, it was fraud. For the first time my chest didn't tighten with helpless rage. Instead, a deep anchoring calm settled in. They had painted me as the broken sister clinging to survival, a prop in their stage play, but they forgot. I'm not built for pity, I'm built for endurance. I closed the laptop carefully, savoring the quiet finality of it. I wasn't the one who had to explain herself now, she was, and she wouldn't be able to filter her way out of this one. The drive to Los Angeles felt longer than it should have. I wasn't nervous, not exactly. It was something colder, steadier, like the kind of quiet you feel right before a storm splits the sky. I pulled into the valet line outside the Beverly Hills Hotel, stepping out in a simple navy dress and the old silver locket my mother once sneered at, calling it flea market trash. Tonight, it felt like armor. As I handed my keys over, I caught sight of the banners strung along the event entrance. "Clara Cares, healing families, one heart at a time." The irony wasn't lost on me. I squared my shoulders and walked in. The ballroom buzzed with hundreds of attendees, influencers, journalists, minor celebrities, all decked out and angling for the best Instagram shots. Clara was already center stage, lit like a golden idol under the soft white spotlight, her laugh echoing through the space as she greeted sponsors and fans alike. I wasn't there to make a scene. I was there to watch. I found a seat near the back, unnoticed among the crowd. I blended in on purpose, watching as Clara swept from group to group, dazzling everyone with her curated charm. She wore a gown that shimmered under the lights, and a smile even shinier. If you didn't know better, you'd think she was untouchable. But masks crack under pressure. After the opening remarks, a slideshow was queued up, supposedly to showcase all the community work Clara had funded through the GoFundMe campaign. The first few slides rolled by, smiling children, thank you letters, stock images of rehab centers, and soup kitchens. The audience clapped politely. Then, a flicker, a frozen frame. A screenshot popped up on the massive screen behind Clara's podium, plain as day. A text message, letter rotten that dump. I gave them the GoFundMe, link for PR, cry for me baby. Another one followed, she's good for sympathy points. Keep the cameras low, show the cracks. The room fell silent. Phones shot up in the air. A low murmur grew. 1,000 tiny gasps rolling through the crowd like a gathering tide. Hashtags popped up on screens almost instantly. At Clara exposed at fake charity. Clara turned, saw the screen, and for the first time in my life, I saw her mask slip, not crack. Slip right off. She stuttered, trying to explain, trying to laugh it off. Tech glitch. Sorry guys, but nobody was buying it. 1,000 judgmental eyes pinned her to the stage. I stayed seated, watching, calm as a winter lake. Then Aunt Beth rose from her table. She had been scheduled to give a speech praising Clara's resilience and family values. Instead, she took the stage with slow, deliberate steps. She didn't even glance at Clara. She looked straight into the crowd. I was asked to speak tonight about hope, she began, her voice carrying across the hushed ballroom. About rebuilding trust. About family. She paused, the weight of her words pressing on every heart in the room. And for too long, Aunt Beth continued, her voice tightening, this family has worn a mask, smiled in public, shamed in private, propped up one golden child while another was left to scrape by in silence. People shifted uncomfortably. Some put down their drinks, some leaned in closer. I won't pretend anymore, Aunt Beth said. Tonight I stand not with what looks pretty on a flyer, but with what is right. And with that, she stepped down from the stage, walked across the room, and without a second's hesitation, wrapped me in a firm, proud embrace. Cameras clicked, flashes popped, the silence broke, and it wasn't for Clara. I heard Clara's heels click furiously across the marble floor as she fled the ballroom, the train of her gown snagging on a chair. I didn't chase her. I didn't even watch her leave. I just closed my eyes for a second, feeling Aunt Beth's arms around me, the first real embrace I'd felt from any family member in longer than I cared to remember. The room rippled with shifting alliances. Some people clapped, some stood awkwardly, some simply stared. I didn't gloat, I didn't smirk, I breathed. The silence I had lived inside for so many years had finally spoken back, for me, and it was louder than Clara's curated world had ever been. Morning sunlight streamed through the patched windows of my little house, painting soft rectangles across the floor. The air smelled faintly of fresh paint and cut grass, a far cry from the mold and mildew that once clung to every corner. I pulled a sweater over my pajamas and wandered into the kitchen, the wood floors cool under my bare feet. Coffee brewed quietly on the counter. Outside, I could hear the gentle laughter of neighborhood kids playing, their tiny voices filling the air with a kind of hope I hadn't known I'd missed. I sipped from my mug and let the peaceful silence settle around me, heavier and warmer than any blanket. A month had passed since the gala. A month since Clara's mask had crumbled in front of flashing cameras and the internet's cold, merciless memory. Sponsors fled, apologies never came, and somehow none of it touched me the way I once feared it would. Instead, I rebuilt, board by board, moment by moment, not just this house, but the life I had convinced myself I didn't deserve. That Saturday, the neighborhood hosted a small community cleanup. I set out a folding table with lemonade and brownies and watched as people gathered, laughing, swapping gardening tips, helping each other haul branches and clear gutters. Kids scrawled bright chalk messages on the sidewalk outside my front steps. You matter, stronger than you know, welcome home. I found myself smiling without hesitation, without looking over my shoulder. Around midday, as I wiped down the table, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but something, a stubborn little nudge inside me made me check. It was a text, from Clara. Hey, things have been rough. Any chance we could crash with you for a while? Just until we figure things out? No apology, no acknowledgement, just a casual expectation that after everything, I would once again hand over what little I had built. I stared at the screen, letting the absurdity wash over me. The girl who once laughed about my junkyard shack now wanted a roof under her head. I placed the phone down, carefully, next to the lemonade pitcher. I didn't respond immediately. I didn't fume or pace or draft angry messages I'd never send. Instead, I walked back inside, my steps light. In the entryway, right above the coat rack, hung a simple wooden frame. Inside it, a faded photo. Me at 8 years old, standing stiffly in a paper crown and glittery costume from a long-forgotten school play. And there, blurry but unmistakable in the background, was Aunt Beth, clapping like her life depended on it. Beneath the glass, in small, neat handwriting, were the words, "You always had the light, A.B." I touched the frame lightly, feeling the lump rise in my throat, and let it settle. No tears. Just gratitude. Just peace. Picking my phone back up, I typed the only response that felt right. There's no space for lies here anymore. I wish you peace, and I sent it without another thought. Outside, the kids laughed and shouted as someone drew a crooked sun with a bright yellow chalk line. I watched them from the porch, breathing in the cool afternoon air. The dilapidated house I bought for $121 wasn't my burden, it was my foundation. I had spent so long trying to find a seat at a table that was never meant for me, trying to earn scraps of love that were weighed and measured and handed out like prizes to whoever bowed the lowest. Not anymore. They wanted a key, but I had already built a door, and behind it, finally, was a life that belonged to me. Sometimes, the hardest walls we break through are the ones built by the people who were supposed to love us most. But when you stop knocking on closed doors and build your own, you don't just find freedom, you find yourself. What about you? Have you ever had to choose peace over family? Share your story below. I read every comment. If you love true family drama stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more.